Hello, humans. So, this week we're going to be talking about Qi Gong, and what the hell is that, right? What is Qi Gong? So, by definition, it translates to energy work or breath work relative to how you want to see it. Now, in the past, I have explicitly stated that I am not a believer in the metaphysical, supernatural, mystical side of this practice. And if you are, more power to you. But I have had no experiences that have indicated to me that any of that stuff exists or is practical. Now, Qigong can be broken down into into two categories, and in those two categories there's two subcategories. So we can break it up into hard and soft, and martial and health. And so if we're looking at it from like a tree diagram, be hard and soft, and then martial and health are equivalent for both. Now, let's start by talking about the soft stuff, because the soft stuff is likely what most people are familiar with. And to me, it is probably the most relevant when we're talking about Qigong, because it's what's going to be most beneficial for people. Because the benefits you can derive from hard Qigong, you can derive from other things. But soft Qigong styles are more Tai Chi-esque, or perhaps more yoga-esque, in that they're very slow movements that are paced with breathing. Now, what is the value of these exercises? The definition depends on who you ask. From what I've gathered, from how I've practiced, the main benefits you can derive are going to be health benefits. So, increasing oxygen intake, increasing blood flow, stretching, and moving your organs around with a little bit more intention than normal. And what that means is, the best way for me to explain it is actually to give you guys an example, and I'll tag a visual along too. But when you look up something like yoga for digestive health, it's going to be movements that are moving your stomach around, moving around your digestive organs to aid with the digestive process. And Qigong follows the same lines. I would argue that Qigong is better for people who are less able, because the movements are not going to be as intense as some of the stuff that yoga people do. Like doing like a downward dog into like cobra. That can be very strenuous for somebody that has shoulder issues. Holding those positions can be very taxing or even damaging. So, like a Qigong exercise, like the first one for the 8 brocades, which is for digestion, respiration, and elimination, we can see that with the movement, we are constantly stretching and compressing our abdominal region. By moving up, we stretch. By pressing down, we compress, and we repeat the same thing on the other side. That in conjunction with breath, right? So breathing in is going to stretch and expand my diaphragm, which is going to maneuver my organs, and breathing out, which is going to put them back into a relaxed position. Now, it sounds a lot more involved than it is, because there's a lot of detail for a very simple exercise, but that is the best way to derive that benefit, because just doing the movement without that torso contortion is not going to give you that same benefit. It can help because you're taking in deep breaths, which is definitely going to get stuff moving. But particularly as it pertains to digestive health, that lack of torso movement is not going to be harmful in any way, but it's not going to maximize your benefit. No. Every exercise has a specific function. And again, depending on who you ask, will decide what the explanation, what they explain the function as. For the 8 brocades, and that's the style that I predominantly use for my Tai Chi classes. The 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 are all pertaining to health, and meaning like your organs and their function. And it's treating your organs like muscles, right? So if I'm working my bicep, right, I'm creating this tension, then I'm stretching. Compress, then stretch. So we treat it the same way. So for number 2, for example, you're going to see that as we breathe in, there's a roundness to my back, and it's relaxed, it's sunken in. This would be the compression. Then as I come out, I'm stretching, right? So that exercise is for your liver. And what you're doing is just compressing and stretching that area to stimulate your liver. Now, as it pertains to organs that are outside the digestive system, I can't really say that the benefits are true and blue, because I have never had liver problems. I have never had heart problems, at least none that are diagnosed. So it's hard for me to give you a true and honest account saying like, yes, if you do this exercise, it's truly going to benefit your liver, truly going to benefit your kidneys. But the way the movements are structured, the way that the intention is supposed to be there, I don't doubt the viability of the movement and its intended function. Now, looking at it from a metaphysical side, granted, I don't believe in this, but I do understand how it's explained. You're essentially directing chi, if you will, into these organs. So, for number 2, for example, I am creating tension. I am tensed. I am blocking chi from entering this area. As I stretch, I'm allowing an excess amount of chi to flow into my liver. And again, I don't really believe in that kind of stuff, but it, to me, just sounds like a different way to explain the same thing, a more mystical way to explain the same thing. And either way you believe it, the way you practice is going to discern how much benefit you get from it. And even if these exercises don't give you that same benefit that you are anticipating, right? If I say number 2, right, it's for your liver, it's maybe we're wrong. Maybe the movement itself of compressing and stretching doesn't at all affect that specific region. But the act of movement, coordinated with breath work, coordinated with arm movement, coordinated with stances, is definitely going to improve the quality of your health nonetheless. So sometimes it's about not looking as deep into it and just accepting the movement as they are and using it as a tool to improve your physical well-being. Now we're going to move on to talking about the martial Qi Gong as a soft style of Qi Gong that is martial in nature. That to me would be something more like Tai Chi. And the reason I say that is because Tai Chi is essentially Qi Gong. The difference is that there's a lot more movement, but it's also coordinated with breath work, which is the definition of Qi Gong. So Tai Chi is a form of Qi Gong in that you're coordinating breath with these softer movements, and it is considered a martial Qi Gong because Tai Chi is traditionally a martial art. Now, that's as far and as deep as I care to go on the soft side of things. Now, on to the hard Qi Gong style. Hard Qi Gong is usually some form of dynamic tension exercises or movement that is performed with a certain sense of aggression, maybe, or perhaps force might be a better term. So here is a clip of the Huashanpai Qi Gong. This Qi Gong is health oriented, and granted, it does have like punches. Those punches are not at all intended to be relative to fighting, and these exercises follow along the same lines as the 8 brocades that I spoke about earlier. You are essentially doing movements that create tension in certain areas of the body to increase blood flow and stimulation of certain organs, or to certain organs. There is more combined with it in that Huashanpai makes sound and introduces pressure points and stuff. Now, I don't know much about acupuncture and how any of that stuff works. I know it has to do with your meridians and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't even know if I believe in any of that stuff, so I try to leave my explanations out of that. Do I know where these points are? More or less, for the first exercise here, and again, this is another one for the liver. Apparently there's a pressure point in here, which is why you're pressing here, and apparently a pressure point in the elbows here that correlate to your liver. Do I know what their function is? Do I know exactly pinpoint where they are? No. Do I know what they do to stimulate that organ? No. But that's the perceived function. The fourth exercise in that sequence is for the lungs, and they'll have you do, in Kung Fu we call this leopard fist, in Qi Gong they call this ginger fist, where they push into here, and supposedly that helps to open up your lungs. If I do this, if I don't do this, I don't feel any difference in the way that I breathe. I don't feel any type of benefit from doing that specifically. So, to each their own on that front. If you believe it, great, and I'm sure that the belief in that acts as some sort of placebo that will increase the quality of your bodily function because your brain is believing that this is going to help me. Now, on to the more, I don't know if I can say scientific side. Certain sounds, certain movements are believed to stimulate certain organs in a certain way. Now, for number 1 and 2, we make a sound. That sound is believed to vibrate your liver and or your kidneys relative to the exercise. Now, I can't say that that's true or not for that exercise in specific because I don't feel any type of reverberation in my organs when I do those sounds. But if I have been dealing with back pain and practicing those exercises, particularly the one for the liver and the one for the kidney relative to back pain, I do feel a lot better. Now, I don't know if it's the physical action, if it's the placebo, or if it's just time that makes me feel better, and it's more of a correlation, not equating to causation that my brain is drawing because I'm intending these practices to benefit these organs. But I do feel a difference, and I can't directly give you an answer as to if it's the exercise or if it's just time. But for the preceding exercises, 3 and 4 specifically, those exercises I definitely feel where I'm supposed to feel. So, number 3, for example, has you strike down on your leg because apparently there's a pressure point in there, and shoot up and fake a cough. Now, the movement is super simple, and it's not a very taxing exercise, but by the end of it, my heart is racing. Number 3 is for your heart. So doing that fake cough sound supposedly forces your heart to palpitate. I don't know if that's the right word, or beat a certain way. It stimulates your heart to some capacity, and you do so without getting out of breath. So in conjunction with the movement, I do believe that that exercise is good for your heart because it gets blood racing, it gets it moving, it keeps it active. Number four. Number four is a little funny because of how you look doing it and the sound you have to make. But number four is clearing out your lungs. So as you breathe out, you're essentially wheezing. Right? And that is supposed to get a lot of the toxins and stuff out of your lungs. Now, if you have mucus buildup, if you're a heavy smoker, and you do that kind of exercise, as I am not a smoker, but if you are a smoker and you do an exercise like that, you're probably going to smell cigarettes or whatever it is that you're smoking. Now, if you have a lot of phlegm buildup, if you have a lot of mucus, and you wheeze out like that and breathe out like that, you might feel some of that come up, which is the point, right? Because you're supposed to be clearing your lungs. So that's the logic and rationale for those exercises, and I can say that I do believe in those because I do feel a difference when I practice them, which is contrary to the softer styles in that there is more of a passive benefit. It takes time and consistency to truly derive benefit from it. And as somebody who is younger and focuses more on their kung fu than their internal practices, I prefer the harder styles of Qi Gong blatantly because I just find the other ones kind of boring. But that's also relative to my age, my preference, and my physical capacity. I'm sure as I age, I will probably find a preference for the softer styles eventually.